My fiancé said, "Everyone at work thinks you're the boring one in this relationship." I answered, "Good to know." That night, I quietly stepped out of every plan he thought I'd show up for. 3 days later, his boss called me privately and said, "We need to talk. It's about something he said yesterday." I'm Ashley, 31, and until last week, I thought my fiancé respected me enough not to trash talk me to his coworkers. Turns out I was wrong. And what started as a casual insult became the thread that unraveled our entire relationship when his boss felt compelled to warn me about what he'd been saying behind my back. I'd been with Jason for 3 years, engaged for the last 8 months. We met through a running club, bonded over our shared love of true crime podcasts and Sunday morning farmers markets. He worked in marketing at a mid-sized tech company, had this vibrant social life at the office, always coming home with stories about his team's dynamics. I liked hearing about his day. I thought we had something solid. But about 2 months ago, things shifted. He started making little comments about how I was too quiet at social gatherings, or how I never wanted to do anything spontaneous. I'd suggest we stay in and cook dinner. He'd roll his eyes and say I was boring. I'd decline going to his coworker's birthday party at some loud bar because I had an early morning meeting, and he'd accuse me of never supporting his social life. Last Thursday night was when everything came to a head. We were having dinner at home. I'd made pasta. We were drinking wine. Everything seemed normal. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "You know, everyone at work thinks you're the boring one in this relationship." I set down my fork. "What?" "My team. They all think you're kind of dull. Like, whenever I mention you turned down plans or wanted to stay in, they're like, 'Wow, she sounds fun.'" He said it with this little laugh, like it was amusing. "You've been complaining about me to your coworkers." "Not complaining, just being honest about our relationship. It's normal to talk about your partner at work. There's talking about your partner, and there's making them sound like a problem. Which have you been doing?" He shrugged. "I mean, you kind of are boring lately. You never want to go out. You don't like meeting my work friends. You're always tired. It's just the truth." The truth, or your version that makes you look like the fun one stuck with the lame girlfriend. "Fiancé," he corrected. "And I'm not making anything up. You are those things." I looked at him across the table. This man I was supposed to marry in 6 months, and I felt something fundamental shift. "Good to know," I said quietly. "Don't be dramatic about this." "I'm not being dramatic. I genuinely appreciate you letting me know how you talk about me when I'm not around. It's clarifying." He rolled his eyes. "See, this is exactly what I mean. You're so serious all the time." I finished my dinner in silence. He scrolled through his phone. After I cleaned up the dishes, I went to the bedroom and started thinking about what to do next. The thing is, Jason had a big work event that weekend, his company's annual summer party on Saturday. Partners were invited. I'd RSVP'd yes months ago. He'd also signed us up for his friend's engagement party on Sunday and a team happy hour on Friday that he'd been excited about me finally attending. That night, while he was in the shower, I sent 3 emails. One to Jason's coworker, Megan, who'd organized the summer party, saying I couldn't make it due to a family emergency. One to his friend Hannah about the engagement party. Same excuse. And one to the happy hour organizer apologizing for the last-minute cancellation. I didn't tell Jason. I just went about my week normally. When Friday came and he asked what time I'd meet him at the happy hour, I said, "I'm not going." "What? Ashley, you promised." "I never promised. You assumed. I sent my regrets to the organizer on Thursday." "Why would you do that?" "Because I'm the boring one, remember? Why would your fun coworkers want me there? Bringing down the energy." His face went red. "You're being petty." "I'm being honest. You said I don't like meeting your work friends, so I'm not meeting them. Problem solved." "The summer party is tomorrow." "Also not going. Sent my regrets to Megan." "Ashley, that's a huge company event. Everyone's bringing their partners." "Then you'll have to explain why yours isn't there." "Everyone already thinks I'm boring," I said. "Just tell them I'm at home being dull." He stared at me like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "What is wrong with you?" "Nothing's wrong with me. I'm just accepting the role you've cast me in. The boring fiancé who doesn't want to do anything. So I'm staying home this weekend. You go have fun without me dragging you down." He tried arguing, tried guilt-tripping, tried saying I was being immature. I just repeated that I was giving him what he clearly wanted, a weekend where he didn't have to be embarrassed by his boring partner. Saturday morning, he got ready for the company party alone. He looked handsome in his suit, and part of me felt sad about what we were losing. But mostly, I felt tired of being someone's punchline. "Last chance to change your mind," he said at the door. "Have fun," I replied. He left, I spent the day reading, went for a long run, made myself a nice dinner. It was peaceful. Saturday night around 11 p.m., Jason came home from the party absolutely furious. He slammed the door, threw his jacket on the couch, and turned on me. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? Everyone asking where you were, me having to make up excuses about why my fiancé ditched me. What did you tell them? That you had a family emergency. So you lied. What was I supposed to say? That you were being petty because I called you boring? You could have said, I didn't want to come. That would have been honest. You made me look like an idiot in front of my entire company. No, Jason. You made yourself look like an idiot by spending months telling everyone I'm boring and then being surprised when I stopped showing up to prove you right. He opened his mouth, closed it, then went to the bedroom and slammed the door. I slept on the couch. Sunday morning, he tried a different approach. He came out apologetic, said he'd been harsh on Thursday, that he didn't mean it the way it sounded. I told him I was still not going to the engagement party. He cried, said I was ruining everything, that his friends would judge him. I said his friends would probably just think he was dating a boring woman who didn't like parties, which is apparently what he'd been telling people. Anyway, he went to the engagement party alone. I stayed home. Monday morning, I got a call from an unknown number around 10. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Ashley, this is Robert Chen. I'm Jason's boss at Apex Marketing. My stomach dropped. Hi. Is everything okay? That's what I'm calling to find out. I need to talk to you about something Jason said in a meeting yesterday. Do you have a few minutes? Sure, I said. What's this about? He sighed heavily. Look, this is awkward, but I feel like you need to know. We had an emergency strategy meeting yesterday, Sunday afternoon, because a major client was threatening to pull their account. Jason was supposed to be there. He showed up an hour late, clearly upset. And when I asked what was wrong, he said you'd been abusing him and that he was afraid to go home. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. He said what? He said you'd been emotionally abusive, controlling, that he was scared of you. He broke down crying in front of the whole team. I couldn't speak. Ashley, I've met you several times at company events. You've always seemed like a decent woman, but I had to take his claim seriously. I told him we'd help him find resources, that he should document everything, that he wasn't alone. Robert, I said finally, my voice shaking. I have never... Let me finish, he said gently. After the meeting, one of his coworkers, Megan, pulled me aside. She said Jason had been complaining about you for months, calling you boring and unsupportive, and that you'd skip the company party and an engagement party this weekend. My heart was pounding. Megan said she thought Jason was exaggerating or lying about the abuse claims because he was embarrassed about you not showing up to events. She showed me text messages where Jason had called you dead weight and said he wished he'd never gotten engaged to you. I stared at the wall, my vision going blurry. Ashley, I'm calling you because I don't know what the truth is here. But I do know that if Jason is lying about abuse, that's serious. And if he's telling the truth, you need to know people are concerned. Either way, I thought you deserved to hear this directly from me. He's lying, I said. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. I've never laid a hand on him, never threatened him. The worst thing I did was skip his work events this weekend because I'm tired of being called boring. That's it. That's the whole story. There was a pause. Can you prove that? Do you have any documentation of your interactions? I don't know. We live together. We talk. We text sometimes when we're at work. I don't have anything that proves I'm not abusive because I'm not abusive. I believe you, Robert said quietly. But Ashley, you need to protect yourself here. If Jason's willing to lie to his entire team about something this serious, you need to think about what else he might be willing to do. After we hung up, I sat on the couch staring at nothing for probably 20 minutes. Then I called my sister and explained everything. I asked if I could stay with her for a few days. She said yes immediately. I packed a bag while Jason was still at work. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Your boss called. I know what you told your team. I'm staying at my sister's. We need to talk, but not here and not now. Then I left. Jason called me 17 times that evening. I didn't answer. Finally, he texted, "We need to talk about what Robert told you. It's not what you think." I texted back, "You accuse me of abuse to your coworkers. What part of that is not what I think?" I was upset and emotional, and it came out wrong. I didn't mean it the way it sounded. You said I was abusive and that you were scared to go home. How else could that possibly sound? Can we please just talk in person? No, I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow. Don't contact me again. I blocked his number Tuesday morning. I met with a family law attorney my sister recommended and explained the whole situation. The comments about me being boring, me skipping the events, his false abuse claims at work. The lawyer listened carefully, then told me I needed to document everything, get statements from anyone who could confirm my character, and seriously consider whether I wanted to stay in this relationship. Even if you smooth this over now, she said, he's shown you what he's willing to do when he's embarrassed or angry. He's willing to accuse you of something that could destroy your reputation and potentially put you in legal jeopardy. That's not someone you want to marry. I knew she was right. Wednesday, Robert called me again. I wanted to update you, he said. After our conversation, I talked to HR about Jason's claims. They interviewed the team members who were in that meeting. Multiple people confirmed that Jason has been bad-mouthing you for months, and that his abuse claims seemed to come out of nowhere after you didn't show up to events this weekend. My chest tightened. What happens now? Jason's been put on administrative leave pending an investigation. If HR determines he knowingly made false claims, he could face termination. I'm sorry this happened, Ashley. For what it's worth, everyone who's met you thought the claims didn't make sense. You've always been respectful and kind at company events. Thank you for telling me. After that call, I unblocked Jason's number long enough to send one message. Your company is investigating your false abuse claims. You need to get a lawyer. Do not contact me again. Our engagement is over. He called immediately. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail begging me to understand, saying he'd panicked when his coworkers asked where I was, that he'd made up the story to save face, and it spiraled out of control. He said he'd tell HR it was all a misunderstanding, that we'd had a fight but there was no abuse. I deleted the voicemail without finishing it. The HR investigation moved faster than I expected. Within a week, they'd interviewed everyone who was in that Sunday meeting, plus several other coworkers who'd heard Jason complaining about me over the previous months. Megan apparently provided extensive documentation, text messages, screenshots of group chats, even recordings from a team lunch where Jason had gone on a 10-minute rant about how I was holding him back from having fun. What really sealed Jason's fate was a conversation he'd had with another coworker, David, the Monday before the company party. David came forward during the investigation and told HR that Jason had explicitly said he was going to make Ashley look bad for not coming to the event. When David asked what he meant, Jason had apparently laughed and said, "I'll figure something out." That premeditation turned it from a potential misunderstanding into clear grounds for termination. Robert called me again on Friday, exactly 1 week after his first call. Jason's been terminated, he said. He tried to walk back the abuse claims, said he was emotional and exaggerated, but the investigation found he'd been planning to discredit you even before you skipped the events. Combined with the false accusations, HR felt they couldn't keep him employed. How did he take it? Not well. He threatened to sue for wrongful termination. HR's legal team is prepared for that. They have extensive documentation. Robert, I appreciate you keeping me informed. You didn't have to do any of this. Yes, I did, he said firmly. What he did was wrong, not just to you, but to actual abuse victims who need to be believed. False accusations make it harder for real victims to come forward. I couldn't let that slide. After we hung up, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief that people had believed me. Sadness that 3 years and an engagement had ended this way. Jason tried reaching out through mutual friends over the next few days. Our friend group was split. Some people thought he'd made a terrible mistake but deserved forgiveness. Others were disgusted by the false accusations and cut him off completely. I stayed neutral in those conversations, just told people the facts and let them draw their own conclusions. The one person who surprised me was Jason's brother, Daniel. He called me about 10 days after Jason was fired. "Ashley, I need to apologize to you," he said. "Jason's been calling me nonstop trying to get me to convince you to take him back." When I pressed him on what actually happened, he finally admitted everything. I closed my eyes. He told me he'd been embarrassed about you not showing up to events and panicked when his boss asked why. He made up the abuse story, thinking it would make him look sympathetic instead of rejected. "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's pretty much what happened." "I'm horrified," Daniel said. "I always liked you. You were good to my brother. He threw away a good relationship because he cared more about his image at work than about you. I'm so sorry." "You don't need to apologize for his choices," I said. "I know, but I feel like I should have seen this coming. He's always been obsessed with how people perceive him. I just didn't think he'd go this far." I hung up feeling exhausted but strangely calm. It's been 2 months since that Thursday night dinner when Jason called me boring. 2 months since this whole thing started. I'm writing this from my new apartment, a one-bedroom place downtown that I moved into 3 weeks ago. It's smaller than the place Jason and I shared, but it's mine, and it feels like a fresh start. The legal situation resolved itself without any lawsuits. Jason's lawyer apparently advised him that he had no case for wrongful termination and that pursuing it would only draw more attention to the false accusations. He quietly dropped it. His former company hasn't taken any action against him beyond the firing, which honestly seems generous given what he did. Jason moved back in with his parents about a month ago. I heard through Daniel that he's been struggling. He can't get interviews because his former employer won't provide a positive reference. He's in therapy, trying to work through whatever drove him to such destructive behavior. He's lost most of his friend group. Part of me feels bad for him, a small part. The rest of me knows he made every single choice that led to this outcome. We had one final conversation 3 weeks ago. He asked to meet in person to apologize. I agreed, but only at a neutral coffee shop, during the day, in a public place. He looked terrible. He hadn't been sleeping. His eyes were red and hollow, like he'd been crying a lot. When he sat down across from me, he immediately started apologizing. Ashley, I'm so sorry for calling you boring, for complaining about you to my coworkers, for the abuse claims. I don't know what I was thinking. I was so focused on my image and what people thought that I destroyed the best relationship I ever had. Why did you do it? I asked. The abuse claims specifically. You had to know that would blow up in your face. He stared down at his coffee. I panicked. My boss asked where you were in front of the whole team, and Megan made a comment about how I must not be that great if my own fiancé didn't want to come to my company party. Everyone laughed. I felt humiliated. He swallowed hard. So when Robert pulled me aside after the meeting and asked if everything was okay at home, I made up this story. I thought it would make people feel sorry for me instead of judging me. I didn't think it through. You accused me of something that could have destroyed my life, I said quietly. I know, he said, his voice breaking, and I'm so sorry. If you could take it back? I asked. I would, in a second. But you can't, I said. That's the thing about lies. Once they're out there, you can't pull them back. You told your entire team I was abusing you. Even though they know now it wasn't true, that accusation will always be associated with my name in their minds. He started crying. I never meant to hurt you. Yes, you did, I said gently. Maybe not with the abuse claims. Maybe that really was panic. But everything that led up to it, calling me boring to your coworkers for months, making me the punchline of your work stories, you absolutely meant to hurt me. Or at least you didn't care if you did, as long as you looked good. He nodded, wiping his eyes. I was wrong about all of it, he said. You weren't boring, Ashley. You were stable and kind and consistent. I mistook those things for boring because I was too shallow to appreciate what I had. I'm glad you've realized that, I said. I hope your next relationship benefits from that realization, but this one is over. He looked up at me, eyes desperate. Is there any chance? No, I said. There's no chance. What you did crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. I could maybe forgive the boring comments. I could probably forgive the complaining to coworkers. But false abuse accusations? There's no coming back from that. He nodded slowly. I understand. For what it's worth, you deserve someone so much better than me. Yeah, I said, I do. We finished our coffees in silence. When we stood to leave, we hugged briefly. Not a romantic hug, just a final acknowledgement of what we'd been to each other. Then we went our separate ways. I've been doing a lot of thinking these past 2 months about what went wrong. The truth is, the signs were always there. Jason was always more concerned with appearances than substance. He cared deeply about what people thought, about maintaining a certain image. I'd assumed that was normal social awareness. I didn't realize it was actually deep insecurity, one that would eventually lead him to destroy anything that threatened his carefully constructed persona. I also realized how much I'd been making myself smaller to accommodate his need to be the interesting one. I'd stopped talking about my interests because he'd roll his eyes. I'd stopped suggesting the activities I enjoyed because he'd call them boring. I'd slowly eroded my own personality to fit into the role he wanted me to play. Never again. I've started reconnecting with the parts of myself I'd let fade. I joined a book club. I started going to trivia nights with my sister and her friends. I took up photography. Turns out, when you're not constantly being told you're boring, you have a lot more energy to pursue the things that actually interest you. Robert actually reached out last week to check in. We met for lunch, and he told me that Jason's story had become a cautionary tale at his company. Training sessions now include a segment on the seriousness of false accusations and how they harm actual victims. He said if any good came out of the situation, it's that his company is taking workplace integrity more seriously. As for dating, I'm not ready yet. I'm enjoying being single, enjoying rediscovering who I am without someone constantly critiquing me. When I am ready, I'll know what to look for. Someone who builds me up instead of tearing me down. Someone whose need for external validation doesn't override their integrity. Someone who sees my quieter qualities as strengths instead of flaws. The weird thing is, I'm almost grateful this happened. If Jason had never made that comment about everyone thinking I'm boring, we might have gotten married. I might have spent years, decades even, with someone who fundamentally didn't respect me. Someone who saw me as less than. Someone who would have continued to erode my sense of self until I didn't recognize myself anymore. Instead, I'm free. Starting over at 32, sure, but starting over as someone who knows her worth and won't ever settle for being anyone's boring fallback option again.